Never let it said that you're going to get out of work. Adam found me at St. Elizabeth's company picnic Saturday night and said, Greg's going to be out of town. Can you do the Devo? So he'll find you. Be ready to work. In the Beatitudes in Matthew chapter 5, we find a particular one that I just want to talk about for just a minute or two tonight, and that is, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And when you get to this, we'll talk just a moment about it, but the idea of being blessed here is the idea of happy. Happy is the meek person. And so, okay, it's wonderful, but what does it mean to be meek? And you look at meek, and a lot of people see somebody, and if you mention the word meek to them, they immediately rhyme it with weak and think that's what it means. And it's absolutely not true. Originally, the word meek, it just means gentle. It means mild. The opposite of wrath and anger. It's somebody who is humble. It's kindness. It's possessing and keeping your composure even under the worst of circumstances. So being meek is not weak. Sometimes it's incredibly difficult and takes a lot of strength to be meek. I can think of Jesus hanging on the cross and how much strength it must have taken to not just wipe them all out. I'm glad it wasn't me. I might have done just that thing given the same situation. But here we have this idea of meekness, and we can find all sorts of examples of meekness in the Bible. We look back to Abraham, and you find that the meekness that he would display when he let Lot choose which way he would go when they had to split up, because it says there in that what he was looking for in Genesis 13:8, it's just let there be no strife. There's no reason to fight. Just you go one way, I'll go the other. You pick the way, and I'll walk the opposite direction. He was very meek in this. Moses in Numbers 12:3 was referred to as the meekest man on earth. Wow, just think of the position he was in, but he was very meek, very gentle, and very mild about what he was going to do. Paul in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7 says, but we were gentle among you. And so even as Paul went about it, very meek. And you think about people, Abraham, Moses, Paul, that could just stand up and really throw out some anger in some cases. Look at what each of them suffered at some point. And yet they're all very meek. And Jesus, ultimate example of it all, is meek as well. In Isaiah 53:7, it's prophesied that he would be meek. It says that he was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he openeth not his mouth. He didn't rail back against the people that would be torturing him, that would be murdering him. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 23 says that who, when he was reviled, speaking of Jesus again, reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not, but committed himself to him that judgeth righteously. So when something was done wrong to him, he didn't get all bent out of sorts and fly off the handle at them. He simply went through it and did what he was supposed to be doing. So we think about, just as we have examples of people who have been meek, and we know what the word meek means if we didn't already, well, really, how can we apply it? Because we need to think about how it is that we can be meek so that we can be happy, so that we can get that blessing. And first off, you think about that our meekness on our part is required in our relationship with God. We're commanded to seek the Lord, and in Zephaniah 2:3, he says, all ye the meek of the earth, seek after him. He's talking about a certain kind of person who looks to God rather than themselves. So meek, be gentle, be mild, and search for these things. Because in 1 Peter 3:4, we find exactly what God considers us to be. But let it be the hidden man of the heart, and that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and mild, or meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God a great price. A meek and mild, or meek and quiet spirit, it's valuable. It's precious. It's a very great price. And it's necessary if we're going to listen to God, if we're going to receive his word. Because we find in James chapter 1:21 that we're supposed to set aside all kinds of things and receive the word with meekness. Gently. Bring it in and let it soak in. And quite frankly, it's not just getting the word. It's not just finding something that God finds valuable. But the fact that the walk that we make as Christians, meekness is required. In Ephesians chapter 4, in the beginning there, our walk, he says, do it with lowliness and meekness. We're not out there railing against the world. We're out there just teaching against it sometimes. We can be meek and we can be mild while we're out there teaching. It's required, again, when we teach other people. Because when we give an answer to someone who asks us, it says here in 1 Peter chapter 3 and 15, always be ready to give an answer to every man that asketh you with what? With meekness. We don't get to stand up and say, you've got to be stupid. We get to say, hey, let me tell you about the hope that lies in me, since you've asked. And we get to be meek about it, and we don't have to be argumentative. We can teach without that. It's necessary when we're restoring an erring brother. And Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1 talks about if a man is overtaken in a fault, we're to restore him in a spirit of meekness. Again, I don't get to go, Neville, what are you doing? Why are you being so stupid? Neville, I love you, and I've noticed there's a problem. How can we fix this? Two different approaches, and I bet he responds to the second one before he starts, responding to the first. And really, as preachers, which we all are at some point in our day, every day, it requires the same meekness. But thou, a man of God, in 1 Timothy chapter 6 and verse 11, flee these things and follow after righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, meekness. All of these things, they're precious to God. And they're effective when it comes to bringing people to Christ, bringing people back to Christ, and keeping ourselves in there. It's required in our relationships between one another. Titus chapter 3 and verses 1 and 2, we're talking about our relationship to the government over us. And how are we to be with this? We're not to speak evil of any men. We're not to be brawlers. We are to be gentle, showing all meekness. It's required for our own personal benefit. In James chapter 3 and verse 13, who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. See, that word keeps popping up. It must be important. If he says it more than 7 times, it must be important. It's part of the fruits of the spirits in Galatians chapter 5, right in there. Meekness, right between temperance and faith. And if you really want the benefit of it, what does he say there in the Beatitude? Happy are the meek. Happy are the meek. We inherit the earth. A whole other time for another thing as to what it means to inherit the earth. But happy are the meek. Focus on that for a moment. Because we're not out there railing against people. We're not out there working ourselves up and getting the blood pressure raised up because something went wrong one day, or somebody cut us off in traffic, or somebody insulted the shirt I'm wearing. We're meek. Again, it's not weak. It takes an incredible amount of strength to be meek. So, build your strength up. Go out. Smile. Be calm. Keep your composure. Be meek. It's the way Jesus would have us to be. It's the way he was, and if we accept him as our pattern, that's how we need to be as well. And if for some reason tonight there's something that's just keeping you from letting your meekness out. If you're just not letting it out, if you're not following it the way that Jesus was having it done, either because you've never started following him before, we're prepared, water, people ready, just clamoring to help you out with whatever you need. Prayers of the saints, if you need forgiveness for something and you've done that before, we have to know about it. So if you'd let us know while we stand and sing, it would be a wonderful thing we'd be happy to help you with.